Welcome to UNCAGED, the show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we are speaking with Roger Willison-Gray. How are you doing, Roger?
I'm good, thanks. Great to be here.
It's great to have you on the show, Roger. Roger is the CTO at the RHF Group. The RHF Group is a group that focuses on business growth and offers its expertise in helping companies gain funding. They focus on assisting clients with the important aspects of their growth and development process, and they support those clients across an extensive range of sectors, all with a significant track record of success. And Roger, I'm sure, will tell us more about that. But before we get into the latest with the RHF Group, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career to date.
Okay, thanks, Ben. I've spent most of my career in corporate IT, although I have been self-employed. I've worked as a freelance contractor and also as an interim manager. So experience of both large corporates and also smaller businesses. And along the way, I worked for IBM, Logica, Computer Science Corp, and a variety of other sort of managed services and IT software and services organizations.
That's great. So tell me a little bit more about what RHF is up to these days.
So RHF Group's been in existence for about 10 years. And over that time, we've raised about $100 million for clients. We specialize in raising venture funding, not necessarily through venture capital organizations. So we work with sovereign wealth funds, we work with some individual investors, but really trying to find companies that may turn out to be unicorns. We don't have any that we've achieved directly, but we remain hopeful. My role within the organization is to evaluate the technology. So, if somebody brings us, for example, got a client that has an IoT security product, that's a little bit niche. So, you kind of want to know what the potential for that is. The investors want to be confident that there is a market and that it addresses the needs of the market. So that's kind of my day job, but I get involved in other stuff as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I can clearly see that that your background in kind of technical solutions for businesses comes in handy as you're evaluating how these new businesses will enter various markets, et cetera. And I can see, the critical nature of what the RHF Group does for any kind of size of company, whether it be early stage all the way through to even a later stage, growth business. But what's the sweet spot for you in the market, and what's kind of the key gap that you guys are filling?
I think the sweet spot that we target is companies in a kind of 20 million to 50 million turnover. There's a couple of stages of growth that are painful, and that very often occurs around about 100 staff or around sort of 20 million turnover. My CEO uses the phrase, you're dealing with grown-up businesses at that point. But businesses don't always evolve into the structure that perhaps they need, and raising finance is a part of that. But you've also got to be able to operate effectively, and you've got to have the right tools and technology to be able to manage the growth. So that's really what we're looking for. Companies which have moved in beyond that point and have got over that growth hurdle. We do deal with some, but that's not really what we're about. That's the realm of some of the bigger management consultancies. We do a little bit with startups, but only if it's something that's exceptionally interesting. We're not we're not a sort of coach or mentoring organization. We're about operational effectiveness.
Yeah, I completely understand. And I can It's fascinating as an individual who has now grown a business from being everything from a PowerPoint document all the way through to a global company. The challenges that you meet at different stages of that business, especially in the IT area, are immense, and it really can have quite a profound impact on a business for sure. But let me change gears a little bit and talk about the last really year and a half where we've been living in this odd way because of this pandemic. And I'd just be curious to hear how you've navigated that period and whether that's presented significant challenges for the business or opportunities, and how you guys are proceeding forward with that.
I think it's fair to say that the pandemic has brought us increased success, a lot of opportunity. Suddenly, everybody had to work from home. The challenges that business face are immense. It's not give somebody a Zoom connection and a mobile phone doesn't fix the operational aspects of the business. And so I had a major client that I worked with up until just finished in July on a large digital transformation for a very innovative software company seeking to grow. It's interesting, an old saying, you don't know what you don't know, and they really were the epitome of that. The bunch of guys who'd founded the business, run it for 17 years. Every time they hit a hurdle, they found a solution to it. The only problem was they kind of invented the solutions. So, the fact that somebody else had done that 200 times before didn't seem to cross their mind, and they got tied up, and so I spent a year unraveling that. And I'm pleased to say that they're really on their way now. They're ISO 9000. We rolled out service now across the organization, and they're firing on all cylinders. So very pleased with that. And then we've introduced some new services along the way. We have just partnered with Acronis, who have launched a new AI cyber protect managed service, and we're rolling that out across our network at the moment. The shift, interestingly, why would an investment company be interested in cybersecurity? You may ask, but it's really interesting. There's a trend with ransomware criminals now to target people who've been raising money, because obviously you raise 10 million, it's in the bank, and so they figure they'll have half of that, and or more. And so we are seeing a need for SMBs to be much more cautious about particularly ransomware. So that's become a kind of core part of our activity, to the extent that in due diligence now, we would insist that they had rigorous cybersecurity before we would do the raise for the capital.
That's interesting. That's the first time I've heard of it in this context. But in general, I would say that the need for more security seems to be almost like an endless need. They were only going to need to continue to reinvent that as things get more and more complex. So, Roger, as you look forward over the next year, 2 years, what are the key things that you're seeing on the horizon that are interesting for your group?
I think in the UK market, we have offices in Shanghai and Perth in Australia as well, and we have a network that covers most countries. But we are probably predominantly focused on the UK market in terms of the percentage of customers that we have. We're seeing a change in the mindset of business owners. They're probably a little bit behind the curve. I think the US has had this for probably quite a long time now, but there is much more of an understanding that businesses need to be run as professional organizations, and that's increasing the demand for knowledge and expertise. So probably the big thing for us, we're going to introduce some regional franchises. It's very important to be able to provide focus locally, as particularly if you're a large global organization. What suits in Shanghai certainly doesn't work in Perth, and vice versa. So that's really a change. We see an increase in the online world, just like everybody else. There isn't any, in my view, there isn't any going back to the pre-pandemic world. There's businesses will evolve and change. People need interaction with other humans, so there will be a need to meet and once we get over COVID. But I don't see us going back to the way we used to work. And for an old IBMer like me, IBM stopped giving people desks in 1980. So to me, being on the move and just using what you need where you need it is kind of normal. But I think we're seeing the whole world move in that shape now. Whereas
it's a really good point. I thought a lot about IBM because I actually remember working with IBM as one of my big clients in the late 90s. And in the late 90s, they basically had regional hubs that you could kind of plug into and out of if you wanted. But you certainly could work at home. And there must be a ton of learnings that we have from the last 30, 40 years from IBM's experience here. It's funny how we're reinventing the wheel a bit, I suppose, as people are like, oh, I don't know, how is this going to work? I say, well, let's look at IBM. So.
I guess the wheel goes around. I mean, in my early days, in the early part of my career, everything was mainframes, and then somebody said, hey, we can connect a terminal to the computer in a different location. It was like, wow. And then a PC came, and that was the end of them. Mainframes were dead. That was never going to happen again. The world's moved on, and then they invented the internet. And hey, cloud computing. It's kind of like having a mainframe with a terminal connected to it all over again.
Exactly. Well, Roger, thank you so much for being on UNCAGED today. We've been speaking with Roger Willison-Gray. He's a CTO at the RHF Group. The RHF Group works with businesses around the globe on their growth and funding plans and strategies, and supports those efforts across many different business verticals. And Roger's been talking to us about RHF's current practices as well as their plans for the future. Looks like there'll be big steps on the global stage for these guys, which is exciting to hear. If someone wanted to reach you, Roger, where should they find you?
The easiest place would be either my LinkedIn profile, which has all my contact details on, and of course the RHF Group website, which is rhfgroup.com.
Wonderful. Well, Roger, thank you so much for being on UNCAGED today, and we look forward to talking to you again.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Yeah, bye.